So that geometry control file that I added in, so there's that. So if I wanted to go in and copy from that, the feature definitions, I could. Annotation groups, all that. Had I brought in something that had actual text favorites in it, you know, and loaded, I'm not gonna do it because this takes a while to load all that in. But then I could go over here to my text favorite manager. I would see that DGN or DGN lib in my list, and then I could just copy and paste it up to my current file. If I'm going to be doing any type of text favorites in a new workspace, sometimes I will just load in a temporary DGN lib from another workspace that I've done, or from the Bentley delivered, and I'll load it in here, and I'll copy them over just so that I don't have to recreate the wheel, you know, so I don't have to know exactly what properties I needed for my stations or my labels, you know. So try to use the Bentley delivered as much as possible if you're doing that.
No, wouldn't you obviously, if you did that more than once, hand that off to somebody who would put it in the lib file?
What is it? Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
If you're in your DGN and you make some changes, you're like, oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
That's why you would copy it in, so that you can put it in the DGN.
Okay. I'm just, yeah.
So I was on the opposite way. I was saying you're taking the DGN and putting the DGN in.
Yeah, I just wanna make sure that people aren't just creating their own stuff in their own individual DGN files, and, you know, it could be great stuff the whole office could
Right, exactly,
wanna use,
yeah.
or.
Yeah, great point. Alright, so looking in the standards, raise your hand if you've created annotations before. I don't want to bore you. A lot of people have it. Okay, so the structure of how this is, like the dependencies on this, is you're going to start, actually I'm going to start from the top and work my way down. So we're going to be in an annotation group first. We're going to talk about cross-section annotation. So I'm going to get into my annotation group here called cross-section frame and grid. There's a couple ways you can manage. You can go over here to the properties and you can click manage there, or we can right click and click manage. Alright, now this is the frame annotation. It looks a little different. So you don't use that very much, so we do the one we typically use, which is this one. The annotation group itself is nothing but a container. So it's just an empty container that we're going to store our annotation definitions in. And those annotation definitions are going to be listed over here on the left side of my screen. So, you know, for a cross section, I'm going to go ahead and hit display so we can get an idea of what we're looking at. And we can also tell it to really highlight as we select maybe. There we go. Okay, so here's my point annotation that you see in yellow. So this is what's going in and looking at my cross section points and annotating those. So if we take a look at the basic structure, this is the most difficult. This is the most difficult annotation definition that there is. This one particular one, because we're going to be picking what points we're going to be annotating, and it can get really tricky. So you know, you could create a list of points, or you can use all of your points. If you're using all your points, you're probably going to additionally want to filter that in some way. And what they've chosen to do here is not only have they created a selection of points from a template, and so you can go in and pick whatever template you want to go and build those selection of points. Get out of here. Go away. So you can graphically go in and select the points, or you can have a little list over here. But you're going to go and pick the points that you want to be annotated, right? And then in addition to those points, they're going to go in and put some sort of filters. So they're saying also, don't annotate any point that has the feature definition G on baseline, ramp, or secondary. And only annotate the points that are on top of the template. Don't annotate any of the sublayers. So you're just using some expressions to build a filter of either all of your points or a list of points that you've created. And then once you've done that, you're going to apply the expression. And then that's going to be the actual, you're picking the points that are going to be annotated. Then you need to tell it, how do you want to annotate it? Do you want to annotate it with a text favorite? Do you want to annotate it with a cell? We've kind of moved away from cells. You're still using for some things, but most of the time you're going to be using text. Okay. Now, when you place that text, what level do you want it to be? What's the symbology going to be? So we're going to tell it what element template to use. Do you want to have a leader on it? Yes or no? So if I say false, I'm not going to have that leader anymore. And how do you want that leader to begin? Do you want to have an offset? Do you want to have an arrow? Is there going to be an extension on it? And again, what symbology is that in drawing? And then we've got the placement. So this is going to be the rotation of the text itself. Do you want it to be 90 degrees? Do you want it to be horizontal? Do you want it to be at 45 at an angle? Do you want it to be offset from the point a certain distance above, below? Do you want it to be, coming from your active angle? Do you want to just specify an angle? Maybe you want to have your text relative to the top of the grid and the bottom, or maybe it's off the point. So there's a lot of settings in here that you can set. If we had chosen a cell here for the annotate width, then we would want to come and pick the cell. Since we chose text, then we're instead going to go pick our text. Now, one tip I'll put here, when you go and you pick a text favorite here, I'm just going to pick this offset elevation. I just chose the same text favorite. You'll notice it reads the whole path. Well, what happens now if I were to move that text favorite to another DGN? Well, I've just broken my annotation definition. So what we can do is we can delete the path and just leave the name, and that'll make it dynamic. So that means if I move that annotation definition or that text favorite somewhere, then it's going to go ahead and fill that path. And then we have some other settings. View readable is an important one, not necessarily for cross-section, but for profile and plan. So that's going to make it to where you don't have to tilt your head to read things. So as the view rotates, it's going to flip the text right side up, either to where you can look at, read it from the bottom up or left to right. So it's going to do that automatically for you. And then you also have view independent, which is going to control how the rotation is handled depending on the view. And then from the text favorite itself, you can override the text style if you need to on this level. You can also add in some prefixes and suffixes, so maybe you don't want to create a whole new text favorite just for this one annotation. So you can try to modify it a little bit right here at the dialog too. So this is the trickiest part. In addition to this, they've got the grid annotation. This is pretty self-explanatory. I think there is a lot of settings, but it's very similar to what you had in inroads, like in your preference file. I'm not sure what you have like, but you're just setting up, the intervals for your majors and your minors, and you're choosing what element templates they're going to be on. There are going to be some call-outs for text favorites because you need to tell it how to pull those elevations. If you want to have, if you want to do anything different, like I've seen where somebody wants to have their elevations on the left, on the outside, but then on the right side they want to have them on the inside of the grid or something. So if you want to do anything like that, the trick is you just copy that annotation definition and you delete out the part that you're doing with the other one. And so it's like you're taking a layered approach. It's also nice when you do that because it's really easy. Now, if I were to build another annotation group, I can pull from those definitions without having to rebuild them. So maybe I have another annotation group where I'm only annotating on the left side. So now I don't have to rebuild that. I can just pull that annotation definition and reuse it. These are kind of tricky too, the cross-section left slope and right slope annotations. So if we take a look at what that's actually doing, that's the cross slope annotation that you're seeing along the top. And the way we specify that is you can use all segments or you can create a list of segments. Same as just comes directly from that template. It's the filters that are a little tricky. So for the filters, we're going to say point 1 and point 2 have to be on top in order for it to calculate a slope. And you're probably just gonna wanna cheat and take it exactly from here. This is gonna probably use, you might add a little bit to it, but it's gonna work in most situations. 0.1 offset and 0.2 offset have to be to the left of the center line, because we're doing the left slope. If you're doing the left slope and the right slope, that's two separate definitions. Neither one of the points can be, or the difference of the points can't be equal to 0. And then what we're doing here with the width is we don't want to annotate anything greater than or equal to 4 or less than or equal to -4. So the purpose for that, I believe, is they don't want the shoulders, or they're trying to eliminate one segment. But yeah, just like the little pieces. Yeah. Alright, so that's for the location, and then same thing with those points. You're gonna choose what you want to annotate it with, how the dimension line's gonna look, if you want one or not. So if you wanted to do like seating and mulching or something, you could do so with this type of annotation and add that dimension line in there. Then you've got to have the points to put the things in there. So a lot of times you'll put like some sort of null point in the templates where, it'll go 3 feet outside of the construction limits or something in order to figure out where you need to see. And then the last one they have on here is the alignment gain. So all they're doing is just, they're putting in, let's see what it says here, the alignment gain on the cross section.
So just an obvious, whoever's creating these templates, there needs to be some type of standard.
Oh, yeah, with, as with anything, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
so naming
otherwise
convention.
it's not gonna, if somebody names it, 0.43, I have to come in here and change it from 0.41 to 0.43. That's just not
Yeah.
the same. Hopefully they don't call it 0.41 to 0.43.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah,
and
you're gonna want the standards all the way from
Yeah.
the text favorites to your levels, to your other templates.
when you get a bunch of different people designing templates, you
Oh,
find
you're talking about templates,
the
yes.
templates, because
Yes.
you're pulling your annotation
That
off
is,
of.
yes, exactly. So really you wanna build a point list in your templates.
So it's like you're saying, with that, if we have a center line that says, center line road name,
Yeah.
proposed existing elevation, reuse cell right away.